Hey Bill, my name is Patrick Zarrelli. I'm a blogger down here in South Florida. They call me Kid Chronic on the web. And here at the South Florida Chronicle, we have a little interview called 20 Questions. And so if you don't mind, we'd like to get right to it with 20 Questions with Bill Maher.
Yeah, I bet you we get through them all.
Okay. All right, so here you go. Question number one. Do you think this is the most important election of our time, or does it just feel that way because we're right smack dab in the middle of it?
Yes, every president, everybody ever running for president always says it's the most important election in our time. But I'm guessing the one that Washington won when the country started was more important. I'm guessing the one that Lincoln won was pretty important. FDR in 1932. Look, I have no illusions that Mitt Romney wouldn't be a worse president than Obama. And I think Obama's second term, call me a cockeyed optimist, will be a lot more inspiring than the first. But the nation has seen worse days than this and bigger crises.
Okay, Bill, what do you think about the attack ads we're seeing this election cycle? Is this the Democrats stooping down to the Republicans' level, or is this a savvy move by the White House and the Barack Obama campaign?
First of all, it's mostly the super PACs who are doing it, not he himself. So that's an important distinction to make. The really nasty ones are not coming from him. Look, the Republicans are the ones who changed the rules. They said any amount of corporate money was allowed, and you could have these shadow groups make these ads. So it's just desserts. And as far as getting down in the mud, it's about time the Democrats did that. You know, well, I heard Liz Cheney say the other day, Americans are tired of gutter politics. Liz Cheney, whose father is Dick Cheney, really tired of gutter politics? Reminds me of that ad on TV with a kid's doing drugs, and he says to his father, I learned it from you, Dad.
Right.
The gutter politics, yeah, we're joining you in the gutter, Liz.
Okay, all right.
It's about time. It's about time the Democrats brought a gun to a gunfight instead of the usual knife.
Even with the attack ads, Bill, do you think Obama has the money to beat Romney and Ryan in 2012?
Well, that's a problem. I mean, it was in the paper today that he's, again, falling further and further behind. I certainly have done my part.
I know. I wanted to ask you about that, Bill. You famously donated $1 million to Barack Obama's campaign. In your mind, what would be the best way for that money to be spent?
Well, I don't know exactly how it was spent, but you know what? I have a really good feeling about it because the whole reason I did it in February, which people said was very early, was because I knew that you have to define Mitt Romney early, and that's exactly what they did. That's exactly where they spent the money, was in the swing states in March, April, May, June. This is when people were first starting to pay attention and find out who Mitt Romney is. This is how Clinton won. This is a very important way to win the election. And also I did it so that it would hopefully give time for other people to be inspired to do the same thing, and that's happened too. Chelsea Handler was on our show Friday night. She said she did it because I did it. Morgan Freeman did it. Mel Heifetz in Philadelphia did it. More and more people are getting the message that we're in a different playing field now. It's at the $1 million level, and the rich people have to ante up.
Bill, do you think there's a reason why Mitt Romney won't produce his tax returns? Do you think he's hiding something?
Why would he not release it?
Well, sure. If you've got nothing to hide, why not release the tax returns? It's what every president's done in the past.
It's hysterical the way he says things like, well, I checked. No, we don't have to look into it any further. I myself looked.
Bill, what about Mitt Romney's choice of Paul Ryan as his running mate? Do you think that makes him an easier or harder opponent for Obama-Biden in 2012?
Well, Ryan's good on the stump, you have to admit. I mean, he is already, or maybe he already was, the flip-flopper that Mitt Romney was, that Mitt Romney is. And so it's very hard in a campaign where people don't pay attention to details, where they just vote on their gut to pin this guy down. But, you know, if the Democrats are smart, what they will do is point out to people that he is far from a deficit hawk. I mean, that's his big selling point, right? That he's going to solve the deficit, but he doesn't solve the deficit because there's nothing brave about his plan. It just keeps giving money to rich people. It's the same old idea that somehow if we keep cutting taxes, it creates more tax revenue. I mean, this would be stupid if you just heard it for the first time, but we also tried this. This is trickle-down economics.
From Reaganomics, yeah.
It's proven.
Do you think, Bill, that in some ways Mitt Romney and his cronies look at America and its decline as the ultimate corporation for them to profit off its downsizing?
Absolutely, and this idea that they're always presenting that America should be run like a corporation. America should be run like a... No, government is there specifically to do the things that corporations cannot do. You know, is that what we want for America? To be just like a corporation? By the way, most corporations fail within 4 years. Is that that what we want? America to be the strip mall that no one ever goes to anymore?
Right.
Under God with a karate studio and a Korean nail salon?
Bill, I wanted to ask you about the Norquist anti-tax pledge. It seems to be the new calling card for the Republican Party. Do you think it's wise for anyone in Congress to take a pledge not to raise taxes for an entire lifetime?
Completely ridiculous. I mean, what's ridiculous to me is that the Republicans feel that the problem with our economy is not income inequality or banks that are too big to fail or corporations that literally write the laws. The problem is poor people hoarding money in unions. And according to Grover Norquist, the answer is a sacred pledge that we will never raise taxes on anyone from the humblest billionaire to the greatest trillionaire. And you hear Mitt Romney say things like, rich people pay more taxes. Well, yeah, and fat people break more chairs.
Bill, aside from the Grover Norquist anti-tax pledge, a lot of Americans are saying that Congress is broken. Is Congress truly broken in this country, or are we just dealing with the backlash of our first black American president?
I think there's a lot to that. I mean, you know, of course the Republicans always bridle when you say race has anything to do with it. And yet somehow everything they say about him is just something I can't imagine them really saying about a white president who did the same things. He's a socialist. Socialist. He's not even a liberal. You know, when they say he's the most radical president we've ever had, really?
No, he's a moderate.
Radical than Washington, who led a revolution? More radical than Lincoln, who freed the slaves? More radical than FDR, who gave us Social Security, a risky scheme to replace starving with not starving? No, I think when they say he's the most radical president, what they really mean is he's black.
He's the most radically elected president.
He's the most radical-looking.
Yes, radical-looking president. Speaking of Congress, Bill, what keeps you from running in your home state of California? The state is notoriously liberal, and you would probably roll right into Capitol Hill.
First of all, I could never be elected anywhere. All they would ever have to do is show any tape of any show I've ever done, and there'd be 10 things that the majority of the American public would never stand still for me in office. I'm an atheist pot smoker. I think drugs are good and religion is bad. Try to start a campaign with that. Who would I ever want to? God, who I couldn't stand the pay cut or the crimping of my lifestyle.
Well, Bill, you know another candidate that's running along those political lines is Roseanne Barr for the Green Party. Do you think she's a good choice for them for the presidential election, or does she kind of cheapen their brand because she doesn't have much political experience?
Well, I certainly believe in green, but I didn't even know they had a brand. I mean, who as opposed to who? I mean, you know, look, I learned my lesson in 2000 voting for Ralph Nader. I love Ralph Nader. I think he's the most serious guy out there. I think his ideas are right. But it did hand the election to Bush.
That leads me into my other question, Bill. Do you think the Green Party is always doomed to be a backseat driver in this country? Do they ever really have a chance of winning an election, or are we always going to be a two-party nation?
I mean, I don't think they're going to get elected in the foreseeable future. I mean, you know, for better or worse, America, which is a country where they're always screaming about how we love our liberty and we have the most freedom, somehow when it comes to electoral politics has less freedom than all the other modern countries, certainly less than any parliamentary democracy. For better or worse, in this country, you got two choices. You got Coke and Pepsi.
Okay, Bill, I want to take a little break from politics for a second for my last three questions and ask you a little bit about religion. Doesn't it feel like religion is making a comeback in this country?
Comeback? I don't think it ever went away, but yes, if you're saying that religion is more prevalent than ever in public.
Specifically, I mean, Bill, scientific ideas like evolution, things that were already widely accepted by the mainstream that we seem to be re-debating again in 2012.
Absolutely. Look at this moron Aiken. This guy who believes that women have some magical vaginal secretion that kills babies in your womb if you get raped. I mean, this is what I mean when I say religion is a mental illness. It completely corrodes your ability to think. Where did he get this from? This is the same stuff as when the Bible thumpers say, science, and what they mean is that Jesus rode a dinosaur. It's not science. It's something they made up and want to believe it. And that's the difference between reality and religion. Religion is what you want to believe. Reality is what is.
That brings me into my next question, Bill, and I wonder if you've ever thought about this. With the death of your good friend Christopher Hitchens and the prior death of George Carlin, does that leave you as the last great anti-religious warrior?
To take that mantle, I think I certainly have got the bona fides. I've been talking about it on TV. since the 90s, before Christopher Hitchens was even an atheist, was even writing about God and atheism. George Carlin was my hero on that subject. He's the one who first did this and first brought that to the public floor. I can't remember anybody else in my lifetime.
No, you guys are the big three for me.
Yeah, well, good. The world is a little lonelier place on this front without those two giants.
My last question on religion, Bill, I wanted to ask you what religion you were raised as a kid, and at what point you realized they were selling you something other than eternal salvation.
Well, I was raised Catholic, which is a joy, let me tell you.
I went to Catholic school.
We stopped going to church when I was a teenager, and so I certainly got rid of any belief I had in the Christian myth then. But it was many years after that, before I became a full-on atheist. I was just one of those people who didn't really give spirituality much of a thought, except when I was in trouble, and then, I would suddenly remember that maybe I should, beg God for, forgiveness for whatever shit I did and to help me get out of my mess. But, I eventually got over that, too.
Okay, one more thing before we let you go. We wanted to ask you if you had any advice for us liberals down here in Florida on how to survive the upcoming Republican convention.
Well, there's going to be a hurricane, so, I would say stay indoors. And, by the way, Pat Robertson should get wind of that the hurricane is coming for a guy who claimed that hurricanes only hit gays and lesbians and the fornicators who are ruining America. He certainly has to pay attention when a hurricane hits the town where the Republicans are meeting. But I also read in the New York Times that the strip clubs in Tampa are much busier when the Republicans are in town than the Democrats are. So get some of that on your flip phone.
All right, Bill. Well, thanks for the interview. We really appreciate it, man. For all of the listeners out there and all of our readers and everybody out there in Chronic Nation, get out and see Bill Maher September 2nd at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. The show starts at 7 p.m., but the doors open at 6. Ticket prices are only $49, so get out there and see yourselves a liberal hero, folks.